usually do Google Hangouts, right? We do that, and everything's fine. But Dalan rolled over onto his laptop a couple weeks ago, which was I'm sure very painful. I'm sure that was very cheap.
It was very difficult. No,
it wasn't very cheap.
It was also difficult for my schooling.
So now what had happened was he was supposed to come over and we are gonna do it live, but we're not geniuses as far as the.
Hey,
I'll say me.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
I'll say
don't
me.
Put we in that.
I'll say me. I'm not a genius at the wheels of steel, as I like to call it. And we recorded through the laptop. And I was like, this is terrible. This is horrible. So we're giving Salient Points number 22 a second shot. I'm your host, Carlos Macias, and I'm here with, of course, my co-host, Dalan Kirkwood.
Yep. Hey, everybody.
And we're being graced, actually, with the special host. He's coming all the way from the mystical land of Temecula, California, Jeremy Lowe.
I'm going to call you a guest today.
What up?
He is a guest. He's going to be joining us. This is the first time we do Salient Points as a three-person, so I think you should be pretty honored, man. We're going to get right into it. We usually do it as a two-man show, but now Jeremy's going to be throwing in his opinions. And we got some Fortnite stuff to talk about, so we do want to hear your opinions, because me and Dalan, we don't know about Fortnite. We barely know about PUBG, and I have a copy sitting on my Xbox.
Which is incredible considering how much I try and toss a little bait out there for the two of you.
Yeah, we play more Destiny than anything, but
we haven't played lately. So we'll get right into it. We'll get right into the show. The first thing we did, we were playing Moss. I did get this is a review code provided to Monster Vine, which is I'm gonna do a review for them. So this is just impressions for me. But the cool thing about this is a PlayStation VR game. It came out Thursday. I don't know when this goes up this week. It came out this Thursday for PlayStation VR. I didn't check the price on it. On my review, the price will be there. But the cool thing about this is, Jeremy, this was your first time playing PlayStation VR, right? What was your experience? And I think Moss is as far as I think about Moss, is it's really a cool introduction to PlayStation VR. But
right.
what did you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the fact that you could look around with the VR headset and see more than just the immediate environment. You could see beyond where you were actually interacting with the environment. The other cool thing was, like you said, it makes it easy for introductory VR people, just because you can use the controller to control it, so you don't have to worry about flailing your arms around or anything crazy. Yeah. It kind of gives you a nice,
it's sort of like a diorama, right? So it's a game that starts off you're in a library, you're flipping through pages of a book, right? It's a very cutesy type of game. You're running around with the mouse with a little tiny sword and a little tiny backpack. Despero, right? Despero. And I thought the same thing. I was like, this is a good introduction to PSVR because it's not that intense. It's like you're looking at a diorama, sort of. And it's kind of cool because the game acknowledges that you exist. At some point, it's like, you're the reader. See, you guys skipped through the story.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was easy enough to tell what was supposed to be going on.
See, I have to review it, so I'm kind of like, I have to kind of go through the pages and listen to the story. But it's definitely one of those cool introductory games. But you did go on to play Resident Evil 7 and Super Hot VR, which is, to me, was kind of we talked. I think that was one of your top 5 games of last year, Dalan. Did we transition you from VR game to VR game well enough?
Yeah, I was just about to say there was kind of a progression there where Moss was very, very familiar and just provided a nice way to interact with the environment or to take a look at the environment.
Because you use a PlayStation controller.
Yeah, it gives you a little basics for actually how to really manipulate a VR system.
Resident Evil was the next step up, given that you had a lot of moments that really took advantage of the first person view and being up close and personal with everything. And then Super Hot was just like a full on a full body experience.
So is it fair to say that how you go? We like to eat our ramen, right? We've been eating ramen pretty recently, often. Would you say is I try to set it up in a way where the spiciness level? Do you feel like Moss was the lowest spiciness, then medium spiciness was Resident Evil, because you're still using a controller for that, and then Super Hot VR is at the extreme. You have to stand. You're using the move controllers, and you really have to understand the limitations.
You're
of the
gyrating and everything else, or in my case, stepping to the side.
Now, are you convinced to grab yourself your own PlayStation VR set?
I mean, not quite yet. I mean, great games. They're fun, but again, after talking with you, a lot of them are fairly short, and it's an expensive investment. I think what I would rather do personally is wait until it's time for me to upgrade my TV, my system, kind of everything at once.
Yeah, and we were talking about it. I don't think the PlayStation VR is going to get a huge update. I don't think it's coming till we were talking about now that these consoles are iterative. So we're going to get the PlayStation 5 next, right? We kind of know that. So I think that's going to be the next significant point in the PlayStation systems, family of systems.
Yeah, but would that really progress with the headset though?
That's what I'm saying. So so I don't even think it'll progress. It'll update the headset yet. I think they'll wait till the PlayStation 5 Pro. PlayStation 5 Pro, and that's when they get it. So
Probably.
because I think that now consoles are taking that model, the iPhone model, where if you try to play some apps that are like 2 versions out of date, you can't use them anymore. You have to upgrade to the new phone, or so I think that's where consoles are going from now on, and I think that's why I don't see these updates happening as fast. I mean, the version 2.0 is not really a hardware update. I was talking to you a little bit about it. The only thing that changes is the processor unit now allows you to not have to unplug to use HDR, and it's a little streamlined, a little better as far as the headphones are concerned. But other than that, it's the same power. You're gonna get the same power out of it as a version 1.0. So you won't jump in yet, even with the discount. It's sort of a deep discount, but not really, because for $200 you get the set itself, but you need the camera, you need the move control, so it's not just the set.
Exactly.
Wait, it doesn't come with a camera? It's just the headset?
Well, the $200 short, the biggest discounted one you can get is just the headset, expecting that you already have a camera and that you already have a move controller. Trust me, I jumped into the deep end. It was $500. The bundle. I went in head first. Yes, exactly, head first. I came with it was like $500. The camera, the move controllers, and the VR Worlds game or whatever it was, and the headset. So I went in head first.
See, here's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for the next system, more than likely PlayStation 5, where because PSVR is already a thing, where they bundle it with it, right?
Yeah, I mean that I think they already did that. I don't know if they did it
with PS4. They did.
Yeah, they did bundle it with the PS4, but I don't think they're really going to do that with the PS5, or at least not in the same way.
I mean, they might. I mean, I don't. The thing is, you saw Microsoft try this with the Kinect and the Xbox, and it was egg in their face.
Real hard.
It flopped hard. But it's possible. It is possible. That
I don't think
5.
VR and the Kinect are really comparable.
No, it's the PlayStation Eye. That's
and I'm not saying it's comparable in the sense that it's as good as VR, because you got the experience of VR, right? How good is VR? Even and this is like the most consumer level one, I guess, because HTC Vive and the Oculus are much better. So even though you thought it was impressive, I would think, right? Even if that it was PlayStation VR, the lowest end of the VR versions, you could say.
And for me, it wasn't necessarily about the technology. It was more in the way that the software developers have come up with interesting ways to use it. Because the very first generation of those VR games was what you would expect. Yeah. It was just you looking through the headset and interacting with some things here and there. They didn't have the level of depth.
So that's what we're waiting on. And I think the games are getting a little longer, but yes, for the most part, they're still short experience. And even Moss, going back to Moss, I guess we'll wrap it up. Moss, I think it seems like it's a short game because you go through 2 chapters and it's like in an hour. So,
but it's beautiful.
No, I get that. What I'm saying, and that's a good experience. That's a mature game. I would say that's a mature game. It's not Batman VR, which looked incredible, and not all these other games, but it's a mature PlayStation VR where they took the strengths and weaknesses of VR and they're like, this is going to be a good, comfortable experience. And I'm looking forward to it. Look forward to my review pretty soon. But Dalan, what are your quick impressions of Moss? And then we can move on to the next thing.
Well, my quick impressions of it is, of course, first, it's beautiful backdrop, foreground, the whole environment that you run your little mouse
deep,
through.
right? It's 3D deep.
I mean, looking at the TV versus looking at the headset, huge difference. Like right off the bat, you could definitely tell. Then there's the actual environment itself. You see all the little sparkles. You could see your own little character in the water, which was awesome.
Which is one of those things that if you look at the TV screen while you're looking at the game, it looks like a maybe late PS3 game. But if you're in VR when you're playing, it looks incredible. It looks really nice.
And you really feel like you're running through an actual storybook. So the game itself, like, if I had to choose another top 5 for this year, Moss might be on.
Y'all ready? We're at
the game is good.
We're going into March, and you're ready to declare a game of the year.
I
right?
said it might be. I don't know. There are more games coming out.
What do we got next? Thanks for letting us know about your first time experience on PlayStation VR, Jeremy.
Thanks for hooking me up.
Now he
Quite
knows.
literally, you've been connected.
You got Johnny Mnemonics. Was that what it was?
I don't know.
Matrix. You got Matrix.
We'll call it Matrix.
We'll call it Matrix. That one's closer.
All right.
Dalen, what we got?
All right. So another thing that we have is there's been, of course, the controversy over loot boxes. And over on Twitter, there was Jason Schreier. I'm not sure exactly how to
He
pronounce
writes
his
for
name.
Kotaku.
Yeah, he writes for, I was about to say that. He writes for Kotaku. But he wrote a thing on Twitter about the loot boxes and their little update.
Keep going, Dalen.
But apparently the ESRB, I'm trying to say that right, said it will start using a new label for inside games, calling them in-game purchases rather than loot boxes, I guess. But the label won't be differentiating between microtransactions or expansions. It'll just be a label that's inside the game, and it'll probably confuse a couple of people. But when Jason actually asked Patricia Vance from ESRB, I guess she's one of the bosses, she said he asked, wouldn't it just wind up in every modern video game? Her response is, there are games that do not have in-game purchases. But then that comes down to the definition between an in-game purchase versus an out-of-game purchase. I mean, you can go and set up a little menu, find little purchases inside the game, and if it becomes a loot box, would it be the same thing as going into the PlayStation Store and buying loot boxes?
It's a good point that he makes. Everything has loot boxes. Even one of our favorite games, Rocket League, which is, according to Jeremy, it's a racing mini game. but even that game has loot boxes where it doesn't affect you at all with the game. You can happily play that game, and it's going to be an incredible experience without loot boxes. But even that game has sort of a loot boxes thing.
But this is not about a case of whether or not it affects the game. It is what it is called and whether or not it is a system of gambling. They're just relabeling it and not changing anything.
They're relabeling the loot box, which is like call a space, put loot boxes on it. That's what we really want as gamers, but they gotta be quote unquote professional about this, so they're calling it in-game transactions. And I think he made the Kotaku guy, Jason Schreier, made a good point that it's what game doesn't have it at this point. So it's like, if you're not really going to differentiate, because I think what people really want is for you to have what are the odds of you getting something good, and how much does it cost? How much do you need to actually put up money-wise to get the maximum enjoyment out of it?
Just transparency.
And transparency, exactly. And they're not going to do that. They're just, this is what it has. We're not going to tell you what the odds are that you get something good. There's just, this is it. This is, we're calling it, what did they call it? In-game transactions?
Well, what about that loot rate, in-game purchases? But what about the loot rate thing that they were talking about putting on video game boxes that they had to actually...
Well, this is what they're doing. The loot crates, this is what Battlefront 2, it kind of shut it down for a while. Is like, and they're sort of bringing it back. I like how they're like, we talked about it a little bit before, but they're even talking about, it's like, we're bringing it back. It's coming back. It's just, there was a sort of a backlash. It affected our sales somewhat, but we're bringing it back, So
yeah, I mean,
this is just a way
as a business model, you just can't ignore it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's too good from a business perspective to ignore it.
That's money. Don't drop your money.
Well, because you're yes, don't drop your money. They're looking for whales, right? They're well hunting. The people that are really gonna make money and they're gonna make the majority of the money are like the 5% that are either they could have addictive personalities or addictive tendencies where they're like, I want this, I have the capital, I have the money to do it, and this is how I'm going to do it. So they're well hunting, but the thing is it affects the majority of gamers.
You keep calling it well hunting? I think it's a vacuum.
They call it, it's not that I call it, that's actually what the term is. They call them whales. They're looking for whales. That's an actual financial term that they use.
I know what it means. So.
But anyways, that's what's going on with that. The ESRB, did they say when they're going to roll it out or anything like that?
No, it was just the Twitter part that I'd actually read on it. So I didn't actually see when they would actually be rolling it out. I think it's just been an announcement.
It's just kind of one of those things. They're just trying to patch it up, and they're gonna just move on.
People on Twitter were really upset about this too. They were like, "It does nothing. It's like change a box from cardboard to paper. You still got cardboard."
Now, at the same time, I know there's like certain states that are like, we need to bring it into the legal sphere. I was like, oh, they got a ban. It's like, at that point, it's kind of like
Hawaii.
Hawaii, and I believe there's like in Kentucky maybe or something. There's a couple different states that are considering it. But the thing is, you got to think about people got to be responsible for their own actions, right? And the dollar is a vote. A dollar is a vote. The fact that they have loot crates and whatever they're gonna call them now, it doesn't matter. As people are buying them. That's the thing. That's why they have them in there. Otherwise, why would they have them in there in the first place?
There will be plenty of in-game purchases in the future.
Your money matters. If you don't want it, well, don't pay for it. But the problem is they only need 5% to well it up to be like, I'm gonna spend $50,000 this month on this game, and 5% of 2 million, 5 million people, it's quite a bit of $50,000 in a month that they're gonna spend. So, but anyway, that's what it is. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
All right, well,
anything else? Before we move
for
on?
that one, no. You go ahead and what you
I like
have
how I should have read a little more on this, but Ars Technica, I know somebody was saying, I think maybe it was the ESRB or somebody was saying, it's like, it's a fun way to acquire items. That's what they're
not
fun
fun whatsoever.
Not fun at all, especially when you're trying to unlock it in Rocket League and you need a key.
Actually,
so
I'm going to turn to Jeremy on this one. Do you think loot crates are a fun way to create to actually gain items in video games?
It depends on how it's implemented. I mean, some games
you gotta pay into
some games
it,
are better about it than others. I mean, you can't paint everything with a broad brush. I mean, some games are good about giving you in-game currency or providing you opportunities to earn things to be able to get certain items. It depends on what game you're talking about. You know, if you're talking about items that are 100% locked behind, you know, the random number generator system of loot crates that, you know, and you have absolutely no alternative means to gain the in-game currency, then yeah, that's garbage.
Yeah,
right?
that's kind of how I felt with Overwatch when I recently started playing that. It takes a lot to actually get money out of a loot crate.
And it's kind of the conclusion that me and Dalan came to. Well, the conclusion I came to is basically what you're saying is it depends how it's implemented. Dalan's very black and white about some stuff, so to him it's like, I don't want it. I don't want it at all.
Well,
so,
which is good. I have my opinion.
Which we do need a black and white guy that's just looking at this is right, this is wrong. Because sometimes
I'm not sure if that was racist or not.
No, it was very not racist. The actual term. All these are actual terms. This is what I'm dealing with, Jeremy.
I think you bringing that up is racist.
I think it's very racist. But we'll move on. Now, this one's a little more exciting. This is kind of one of those things like, of course, it's coming to the Switch, but Smash Brothers is rumored to come to the Switch later this year. And this is a quote from Nintendo Everybody. Nintendo Everything, actually. It says, quote, Emily Rogers, who has been both spot on and occasionally off the mark with Nintendo rumors, claims that a Smash Brothers game will be announced and released for Switch later this year. Rogers further says that it will include new content as well as reworked content from the Wii U and 3DS games. Rogers isn't sure as to how Nintendo will brand the game. It's possible that it could be a deluxe edition, some sort of sequel, or a full sequel, unquote. Now, Emily Rogers, I don't know if you guys heard of her. I believe she's a journalist. She writes different articles, and she has been right, I think, about
I've heard she's had her hit and misses.
She's had hit and misses. I think she's been right about 80% of the time. But of course, this is one of those things that, of course, it's coming this year. What else? They haven't announced anything.
Not just that, but her statement is so broad. She's like a dollar fortune teller, right?
Yeah.
It may be a sequel. It may not be a sequel. It may be this. It may
basically,
be that. Okay, well,
it boils down to, I don't know, but it's coming.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? And it's kind of like the problem with, like, say, the fake news and all that stuff. You have to. It depends who you trust, right? If you think there's a trustworthy source, she has gotten these predictions right 80% of the time. So it's one of those things like, yes, she is saying something that's blatantly obvious, but maybe she does have somebody from Nintendo or somebody that works at Nintendo is like, look, it's coming. We can't tell you. She's basically saying somebody told me it's coming. I can't say whether it's a full sequel or they're just adding little things like a Mario. I think it's just going to be a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe version, man. And then you know what it's going to be? I'm going to call it. I'll even do a bet if you guys want. It's going to be called Super Smash Brothers for Switch. That's what it's gonna be called. So just like the ones for 3DS and Wii U, they were like for 3DS, for Wii U. So it's sort of an obvious statement. But are you guys excited? I know you guys are recent Switch owners, so whether it's an obvious thing to say or not, you got to be excited.
Well, I kind of lost my excitement for the.
Well, Dalan is, I guess. Dalan's a recent owner of a Switch.
We were day oneers.
Yeah, you could be day oneers. That's fine. I got my Switch eventually.
He used this against me for the longest. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast, but he was like, "Carlos, you told me not to buy one." I was like, "Dalan, all I said was, do you need one?"
No, you said no. You told me not to get it.
I said,
you said wait until the library gets larger, and then I went and bought other games because he told me to do that.
And I still think it's a fair statement.
Yeah, it is.
I
way it goes, either way it goes, I have a Switch.
Yeah,
I have a Switch, all right?
Well, what I'm saying
It was
is,
still good advice, though.
I still think it was very fair. I would give that advice again.
But then you were complaining about these games that I wasn't playing.
I'll put it to you like this, Dan. I'll put it to you like this. People have problems with, like, say, kids are expensive. And yeah, they are. But I think the main point, I think I told you guys this before, but I think the biggest problem is that people will come down to their last $20. And they either want to get a 32-pack of Bud Light of water, / water, or diapers. And they're looking at these two things like, man, children are expensive. Well, yeah, because you're to your last $20 and you got to make a decision at that point. But it's really budgeting. It's a sense of like, look, Dalan, do you need it? I don't know. I'm dumb enough. I would say that. I'm dumb enough to buy that day one. Like the PlayStation VR at $500, and now it's to $200. So...
but now when a Switch game comes out, I can at least try it if I decide.
So Smash Brothers, we're gonna get down with that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, at this point, yes.
It's an obvious statement to say it's coming out, but we're gonna grab it. We're gonna be there day one. We're gonna
destroy each other. That's it.
I hope it's better though. I mean, did you guys play the Wii? Did you have the Wii U version?
I played a little bit of it, but it didn't seem very iterative from the last game.
Well,
this is what I was.
As far as
much the same.
As far as the online, I guess I would say. Did you play it online?
No,
because I played the Wii version online. It was terrible, man. And you were stalking like a white boxing. What is it called? The man. It's a very easy word, and you guys could help me right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to talk about.
The bag, the punching bag.
So
you were just punching a white punching bag in the Wii version for the longest time, and when you got into a match, it was laggy. It was unplayable. So I never really did mess with the Wii U one. So I'm hoping the Switch one. Nintendo seems to care a little bit more as far as online. Rocket League has been perfect for me.
Well, hold on, I have a question.
Mario Kart 8 has been perfect for me.
The one that you're talking about for Smash Bros. Is that the Wii U / 3DS one? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, it was the same version. Just the 3DS version was kind of knocked down visually a little bit.
Yeah, I was kind of drawn away from the game when that actually happened. So I was like, I'm not even gonna play this game. I'm gonna wait for the next Smash Brothers game to come out. So I'm not even worried about this one. And then I hear people were picking up the one for the 3DS, and they had nobody to play with. I was like.
Yeah, and I don't think it was crossplay or anything like that either.
No,
it's functionality. This is how backwards Nintendo is sometimes, right? Its functionality, its cross functionality was that you could use it as a controller on the Wii U version, but you couldn't play with each other. You couldn't play online, like match up on 3DS and match up on the Wii U. But anyways, anything else before we move on to Dalan's next? This one, we're gonna get you in on this one, Jeremy.
Yeah, this is like one that is specifically tailored for you. So, Forbes says that Fortnite is dethroning PUBG before our very eyes. Well, I'm going to read the small list of what was on Forbes website, being that Fortnite is almost always drawing higher viewership on Twitch. It recently surpassed 3.4 million
That's what people
people
care about is viewership.
Yeah, they care about viewership. It's Twitch. Recently surpassed 3.4 million people playing concurrently or at the same time, beating PUBG's last report that was actually sent out. The Battle Royale now has at least 40 million total players, up from its 10 million that it had after 2 weeks from October when it first released. And what was the other one? Oh, meanwhile, PUBG had a 10% decline in overall activity. So I just feel like PUBG just isn't progressing enough.
Yeah.
Just that.
Well, I mean, it's had one map for years, or
it has two maps now. Desert map.
It has two maps, but what I'm saying, it seems like it's had the same map, and I know now it's having issues where. So that's actually one of the things I want to ask you about. I one of the things is it could be PUBG is just kind of long in the tooth now. It's just games have their time in the spotlight, but I think another thing is. A lot of new players, and somebody did an article, I should have put down who wrote it, but they were talking about the mid game is a problem for it, is because you drop in, it's 100 people, but new players come in and they're trying to find the most effective way to get the best weapons, this and that. So they're dropping into hot zones. So it starts with 100 people, right? It's the battle royale mode, and then it dwindles to like 60 people, and then you got a circle that takes forever to close in. So now you got a lull in that mid game, where everybody pops in like, I'm just going to shoot everything. I'm going to try to go for everything instead of being like, let me strategically fall in somewhere. Let me go around, try to find the weapons I need. But now it's kind of like I think there was an influx of players. People are playing on Xbox now, and even on PC, there's new players all the time. But it messes with the game, the flow of the game. So I guess what would be the difference with Fortnite? You played the battle royale mode of Fortnite,
yeah.
Right?
So I started playing the Save the World mode when it first came out, and I still
is that
play
the battle royale mode?
No,
I think that's like the more storyline.
That's the co-op. That's the
Okay.
co-op
Yeah.
mode.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I started playing, and then eventually they released at some point when I started playing, they released the Battle Royale mode, and I started messing around with that a little bit. And so the biggest difference between PUBG and Battle Royale is that it takes the biggest thing would be it's free, right? So there's no
That's the biggest thing, it's free.
in terms of drawing people in, right? Because there's no barrier to entry whatsoever.
Yeah, that is one of the key things. Yeah, PUBG forever has charged, even in early access. Whereas, well, I mean, Fortnite was it's been early access, but sort of free
Early
for the most
access. Early access only applies to Save the World.
part. Okay.
The Battle Royale mode came out day one being free. The other thing that's fun about it is, it doesn't take itself super seriously, and they play
And
on
it looks nice, right? It plays
looks
smoothly.
nice.
It looks nice.
It doesn't take itself seriously, and the items that they add, the weapons, all the different things that they've done to the game since it come out kind of play off of that strength.
Which is one of the things, like PUBG, they used to have the lobbies you could kind of test out the weapons. They actually took that out because it was a little too glitchy. It was messing with the flow of the game. So the fact that Fortnite, it looks nice. It's not necessarily the most graphically intense game, right? But
No,
it looks nice.
stylized, for sure.
Artistically, aesthetic-wise, it just looks nice. And it can probably run on any computer.
And it
can,
plays
I'm sure.
and it plays fantastic. That's
Yeah.
the other thing. PUBG runs like crap on any machine.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like it runs like crap on any machine.
I mean, it is fun, but yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that it's free and it's created, like Dalan was mentioning, the fact that on Twitch is like it just creates this swell of like, what is this? What is this? People start playing it. And
I think it's more available too.
The biggest distinguishing factor between them, though,
it's on PlayStation and the Xbox. Is that what
Right,
you're
yeah.
referring to? It's on
PlayStation,
everything. Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The biggest distinguishing factor in terms of the gameplay, though, is the fact that Fortnite takes the building aspects from Save the World and kind of applies them to the Battle Royale formula. So you gather these materials throughout a match where you can build walls, you can build, a fort, for instance, and it adds a whole nother level of strategy to the game that PUBG just doesn't have.
Now, is it in an accessible way? Because this is one of the things I rail against all the time. Anytime tower defense, I call it tower defensey. Maybe it is sort of tower defense in a way.
I think you can be tower defense if you actually stay still.
Anything tower defensey, I'm like, I'm not down with this. I know I was playing Sunset Overdrive. I don't know if it's an Xbox game, an Xbox exclusive from Insomniac. As soon as it was like, build these towers, build these for wave-based action, I was like, nope. Taking that CD out, and I'm done with it. The only wave-based type of thing is Plants vs. Zombie, which I've mentioned before. But Fortnite is done in an accessible way.
Actually, we played our little Vita game that we had our code for. What was that called?
Yeah, we got early code for it.
Yeah, well, I can't remember. Gunhouse. It was Gunhouse.
Which
That
is
was
kinda
another
cool.
little wave game.
But just to finish up, what do you think it's? Why do you think it's beating it, and do you think it's gonna obliterate it? I guess, which is funny. Fortnite is done by Epic Games, right?
Yes.
So Epic Game licenses Unreal to PUBG, and PUBG was really upset, which is like, why'd you blow it up? You shouldn't have said nothing. I think that's actually probably when the tide started to turn, that and it's free, right? And it's like people probably didn't know what Fortnite was. Well, they did know, right? If you're in the know, but mass amount of people didn't know until PUBG started hating on it. It's like, you guys are taking a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
That comparison
and then
wasn't there.
people looked at it like, what do they complain about? Maybe I gotta check.
Let's put it this way: my little brother had no idea what Fortnite was until that happened.
Until PUBG complained about it.
Now every time I go over there to go pick up my kids and see my mom, he's there playing it, right? So
my brothers play it. One of my brothers really loves his Fortnite. The other one's still into PUBG, but I'm sure he's gonna eventually. You gotta go. It's like
you'll eventually, man. You're
gotta
really hating
switch
on
over.
PUBG right now.
Well, no, it's not that I'm hating on it. It's just realistically, it's today's generation. I think we grew up, and we've talked about it a little bit before, but we grew up sort of in a generation where single players were the thing. Single player campaign was the thing. But I think we're moving back to the early video games. See, this is the thing people seem to forget. forget it. Like, where's my campaign going? It's like, you got to understand, man, the first video games were multiplayer. They were meant to be played in a bar. They were meant to be played with other people. We just, like, we were a big enough market to, like, we got to cater to these guys, these nerdy kids or whatever it is. They really want a campaign and they're just going to play by themselves. So we're actually going back to an era where people want to play with each other. So PUBG is huge. And then Fortnite, of course, is probably going to take over at this point. You just can't stop that snowball. And they're just everybody's gonna go to that.
Yeah, but when the story is gone, everybody's gonna want the story back.
I don't know, Dan. That's the thing. We've talked about it before.
It
I
depends
don't know
how good it is.
It depends, and I think we've talked about it before too, and I think we're just gonna have to accept that we're gonna get shorter games like Hellblade, where it looks amazing, but it's like a 3-4 hour game, and we gotta be willing to pay a premium, which for Hellblade was $30. It's $30, 5-hour game, good, amazing sound, amazing graphics. But otherwise, people are going to try to get these multiplayer games going. And even so, it's hard. It's hard, but you want to get people playing the same game over and over.
Yeah,
and that's part of the loot crate situation, too.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll ever see a big downturn in that, because you can still see that, Square Enix is always bringing out RPGs. They're still bringing. There's one for the Switch
and
that's coming out.
And the good thing is they're successful, and that's really what matters, right? Is that they sell. And you see companies kind of care about the campaign, because Star Wars Battlefront 1 didn't have a campaign. So for 2, they were like, let's make a campaign. It was just a 4 or 5 hour campaign. But to me, I was like, I'm going to try it out because I want to mess with the campaign. I sent it back to GameFly, but I rented it, played the campaign, was happy with it, and sent it back. To me, it didn't matter about loot crates or anything because I wasn't even playing the multiplayer aspect. So I think the companies still care. We're going to have to find a happy medium where it's like you can get a short campaign and some multiplayer, and, people got to decide, and your money counts, right?
Yeah, so ultimately, though, my prediction there is Fortnite is going to easily overtake PUBG.
And you've been
I
a
think
fan.
they already did.
And you've been a fan of Fortnite, so I think you're probably happy, or do you feel validated in a sense?
Well, okay, so I don't want to get too far off topic here, but one of the things that a lot of people get annoyed by that play Fortnite Save the World is how much attention Battle Royale has gotten since it became popular. There's a lot of things that need attention, in Save the World that have been kind of left by the wayside as a result, or pushed back. That kind of thing, but they're.
So are you guys like get off my lawn kids type of like?
No,
you guys weren't even here from the
it's-
beginning, and now you're
No,
taking over.
it's you charged us X amount of dollars to play this game in early accccess. We essentially, the players
This is
essentially
legitimate. That's pretty
funded
legitimate. Yeah,
your
it's legitimate.
battle royale mode, and now you completely ignore the people who paved the way for you to be able to
true.
do that.
Yeah, and the latecomers are the ones that kind of benefit from all the updates, and they're like, oh, "This is great. This is incredible." Meanwhile, the guys that kind of propped it up in the first place with money paying into, because you did buy it, right? You bought into the early. You're like, you're just left by the wayside. We don't need you anymore. We switched to a free-to-play model that is amazing, which comes into play with all the loot box thing, and we kind of don't need you guys. We'll come back to you guys.
But the thing is, with just the free-to-play mode, there's still that whole co-op aspect that's just you don't get. So unless you pay, you don't really get the full game. You just get the one mode. So don't mind you, the mode is fun.
We'll follow it. We'll see how it goes, and I'm sure me and Dalan we're gonna jump into Fortnite and crossplay.
I already downloaded it. I'm ready.
Mine is downloaded too. I guess we're just gonna have to get down with it at some point. We'll move on. And speaking of sales, the January 2018 NPD sales data for the top 10 is out. So the number 10 games, these are the ones that sold in January. The top 10. Number 1, Monster Hunter World. So congratulations to you RPG and Japanese game fans.
I'm very happy about it.
Number 2, Dragon Ball Fighters. So there's 2 Japanese games there. Number 3 is Call of Duty World War II. It's still there in the top 10. It came out in November. It's still there. Player Unknown's Battlegrounds is in number 4. Number 5 is Grand Theft Auto 5. I don't know when that's ever getting knocked off. NBA 2K18, number 6. Super Mario Odyssey for number 7. Number 8, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Number 9, Mario Kart 8. Number 10, Madden NFL 18. These games are evergreen, man. I don't know if you noticed, but there's
evergreen.
There's 3 Nintendo games that they're still selling at full price. Please understand.
And that will never drop.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool, man. I do like the fact that these Japanese games kind of are in the spotlight. They're in the top 2. So I think it's pretty good. It's the Japanese industry has not been as big as in the 90s and late 80s. They resurrected the industry, and then we kind of left them by the wayside when perfect first-person shooters took over. So for hardware, this is from VentureBeat. Said they quote, the Nintendo Switch sold the most systems, but Sony's PlayStation 4 generated the most revenue. Microsoft's Xbox One rounds out the top 3 consoles for the month. And then it says PlayStation 4, Switch, and Xbox One all performed well in the month of January, said NPD analyst Matt Piscatella. In dollar sales, the gap between the top-selling platform and the third best-selling was only 3%, meaning across the board, the Switch sold well, the PlayStation sold well, and the Xbox sold well, which is actually behind the PlayStation 4 2-1. But that means for January they sold pretty well, which is a good thing. You
That's
want,
a great way to say that.
You want the industry to be pretty healthy. Anything you guys want to mention on this before we move on? Anything interesting?
There were actually a few things that I was actually a little surprised about when I saw the list itself. Was one, I'm surprised the UFC 3 was even up there.
I think people know that it's not a good game.
Yeah,
I think
people went and bought it anyway, so they still got a good sale.
Yeah, I think people know that it's not, because it did come out. Well, no. That was released this month in February, I believe. So that should be.
But this is January.
This is January, so it came out February, but this is for January. I don't think it came out in January. I think it came out first week
Carlos,
of February.
Listen to yourself.
UFC, you're talking about UFC, right? UFC 3. This is what I'm saying. I say things that are true, and then Dalan doesn't believe me, and then I'm gonna prove it to him right now. Keep talking about whatever it is while I tell you when this came out.
Well, another thing being is that Dragon Ball Xenoverse is
UFC. EA Sports UFC 3 came out February 1st, 2018. So it just doesn't get, it missed the cutoff, but I'm right. Can we get that?
All right, I'll give you that.
So we'll see next month, but I don't think we'll see it very high. We probably will see it in a top 10. It's a sports game.
I wouldn't be surprised if I saw a bunch of videos out there with very broken gameplay.
But this top 10 has not changed in the longest time. Understand that Grand Theft Auto 5 is in there.
Dragon Ball Xenoverse is
Grand
still
Theft
up
Auto
there.
5
Xenoverse 2 has been out.
It's not in there. What are you talking about? Dragon Ball Fighters is number 2. What Xenoverse?
I said Xenoverse.
Yeah, what are you?
Number 16.
Oh, number 16.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm just surprised it's on the list. Versus Xenoverse 2, which came out more recently, and they had its updates.
That's a good observation. I like that, Dalan. I do like that, actually. But yeah, other than that, it's a healthy industry. You know,
it's probably had some sort of a big price drop recently. So
yeah,
that would be my guess.
Yeah, usually
Xenoverse.
Anything interesting, Jeremy, before we move on to Dalan's next thing?
No, I mean, I'm not really surprised. I see a lot of these games, and they've been on our top 10 probably for the last 6 months looking at it, you know. But
Mario,
they're incredible games. Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild. I haven't played Monster Hunter personally, but it just came out, so there's the hype train behind that one, and I've heard that it's also fantastic.
Borrow from Carlos. He plans on returning it.
I just don't like Monster Hunter in general. That's just me, though.
Oh well, they really changed some stuff.
You kind of do have to like it, and I tried it a bit, and not to say it's a bad game. It's not my style, so I'm sending that.
The combat in there just reminds me of playing of Bloodborne.
I think that's probably why I don't like it, man. And you're supposed to be playing a co-op online, and it's like, no, for co-op games you need some responsiveness, like very good responsiveness. It's not a bad game. It's just I tried it, not my game. Sending it back. All right, Dan, what do we got next?
Okay, another thing that I personally wanted to actually talk about, or at least touch base on, was are the preservation of old online games necessary? According to the ESA, or Electronic Software Association, they say no, it's not.
Ooh, okay.
The video game industry. Well, I'm already saying that the video game industry doesn't do a great job in itself preserving its old games to begin with. I mean, we have a landfill filled with games.
I mean, that's just different. You're talking about the ET thing where they throw a bunch of cartridges.
But still, you have older games that they kind of just drop off the map and they kind of just forget about, or they want to bury, quite literally. Yeah. But the ESA is petitioning the U.S. to not make the DMCA exceptions, or the Digital Millennial Copyright Act. I was trying to figure out how to say that. They want them to no longer make the exceptions for abandoned online multiplayer games, because it seems like it's an attempt to let third party parties to create online servers for games like EverQuest or Command and Conquer, or games that people really haven't played in a very long time. They actually think that it could bring back, or it could bring up too many libraries or museums. I believe you were calling it that earlier.
Nonprofits. You're talking about nonprofits, I guess.
Well, I guess they would be nonprofit if they didn't have the model of pay to play, where they could create a a museum and then charge people to be able to play those games. So according to Torrent Freak, one of the sites that I do frequent for news.
Oh, good job. Good job just throwing that up there.
Yeah, you're welcome. The company Made, that's the name of the company, it's Made, already does this for $10 a month for all you can play games.
Now, is it a server? Does it provide servers to old games or something like that?
If you don't mind, I'll interject here a little bit. I was not fully briefed on this particular subject beforehand.
No, you weren't.
What this refers to is, and I know the two of you really aren't as
this
we'll call
is
it
thing.
in
This
the
is
know
a Jeremy
with it.
topic.
But this is 100% about MMOs. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah,
that
I
this
figured
is
that's what it
in
was
regards
about.
to. And so really what it is, it's about private servers. It's about people who bring to life a private server with X or Y change to the base game, whether it's because they don't like the direction the game took after a certain expansion, or
So it has nothing to do with preservation, and it has to do with
no,
them. I
it's-
just want to
it's-
go to 1.2, not 1.6.
No, it's
Right.
about
These
their
are people-
copywriting and they're changing
Hold
the
on,
game
Dalan.
outside of their company.
Okay.
these people have been fans of a game like EverQuest, right? EverQuest has been around forever, and it has umpteen expansions.
But
there's-
are the servers still provided by the actual I think SEO, right, or Sony was EverQuest?
No,
Yes,
there's
it's
that
Sony.
company.
But it's still held up by
Right.
servers are still by Sony or whatever.
at the current build. Right, there is no way to go back.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, recently Blizzard announced that they're going to do one server as a test, and they're going to go back to vanilla.
Well, you
World
can
of
revert
Warcraft.
to different
World
versions
of
of the
Warcraft
game.
very
so ready
beginning
for that.
World of Warcraft
to make it online play
And
once again.
Now, would that be a solution? What Jeremy is talking about that Blizzard could do is they would set up a separate server where they go to version 1.2 or 1.0.
But
right,
the
but
problem with
Blizzard's
that-
the only company who's showed any kind of interest in it.
Yeah, but the
Well,
problem
there's maybe no money in it, right? But
there's very little money in it. The problem with doing it is the fact that there would be very little money in it, and it costs money to make servers for these games.
Yeah, but if it's Blizzard, they're the company themselves.
yeah.
They're like saying, like, well, this is just goodwill for our fans. It doesn't have to make a money, but I can see now why the problem is the ESA is having a problem where companies like Blizzard are like, well, we're gonna do it ourselves. But I guess there should maybe be an exception for there's some games that are in a graveyard, right?
Yep,
that
games
nobody's
that
gonna mess.
well, that's what the
maybe in that
DMC
time.
currently has, and the ESA wants to take that away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't have any power
no,
over
I
them.
mean, the thing is, even games that pop up today. Matter of fact, right before Blizzard made the announcement about this vanilla server coming back, there was this whole drama about them shutting down 3 or 4 private servers that were exactly that. They were vanilla WoW or Cataclysm WoW or
Yeah, wasn't
versions
one
of the
of
game
them-
before. So they closed them down.
I think
So
one of them was
Blizzard-
StarCraft, wasn't
but
it?
they closed them down.
So
Blizzard.
so Blizzard would be more on the side of ESA. But
Yes.
see, Blizzard is a huge company.
Yeah, they can afford
Blizzard
that.
can afford having a private server of 1.0 or whatever, or not a
Right.
private server, but a server that they're providing of 1.0, and they're like, this is actually a genuine loss on our business, but it's goodwill. It keeps people from making third party. So
Well,
now, what's
and-
the problem with people? Let's say it's Blizzard, right? It's a huge company. Now, what is the problem with a random, like me or you, starting a server for World of Warcraft 1.0? Like, to them, what would be the problem? with doing
in
that?
their okay, so and this kind of ties in with the article, right? In their mind, what you're doing is
Copyright
IP theft. You're taking their product, and because these private servers, there's as far as I'm aware, there's none that are 100% free, right? Because these
okay, I see
people-
what it is.
these
It's a
people-
for-profit for
Right. These people have,
okay, I see it.
even if they wanted to, even if they're only charging enough to upkeep the servers and to maintain it, they're still charging money. They're still making money on it, right? And so it's something that these companies see as, copyright infringement or IP theft, where you're taking what they created, what their company created, and trying to make money.
See,
with
now
it.
that's an
But
interesting
that's
other
not the
side of the
intent.
coin,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So in this article, did they mention, just to kind of close it up, did they mention that side of it? Of
They
what
actually
Blizzard
did
is
mention
doing?
that side of it because they because they were concerned about the copyright infringement for actually taking these games and putting them in a private server and then selling them outside of their company. The other part of this argument is that the fact is that you're actually releasing these games without the company's express permission.
Yeah.
And the
So I
information.
can see the side of the ESA on it.
Well, this particular part is the information that's sent to each computer in order for you to be able to play the game. You could have people, because they're not monitoring these games that these people are playing. They might go in and try and get the source codes for these games, and they might be able to figure out how to break into other consoles.
We can at least say it's very gray, right? It's very gray. It's like, to me, I don't see a problem with a company having their own, or somebody, just individuals having look, I'm going to host a server. I don't see a problem with that. But when it's for profit, it's like, well, that is somebody's copyright, copyrighted game or title or whatever it is that you're profiting off.
Yeah, the only reason WoW does it, or WoW's going to do it, is because they are the single largest and have been for the last
they can afford it even
years.
if it's a loss.
That's just it. It won't be a loss, not for them, because they have so many players compared to other MMOs.
That's true. I mean, and it's one of those things where even like, because I know it's like with any MMO, it's going to lose its base at some point, right? So maybe it keeps players around that were considering canceling, like, well, I hate how the new direction, but I will go to a 1.0 server and I will keep paying monthly.
I will
so
enjoy
it's even
my
a smart
old school games.
business move. So yeah, that was pretty good. That topic was cut at some point, so thanks for bringing it up, Dalan.
And by the way, also wait. To be fair, the reason why you didn't know that we were bringing this up is because you were head deep in Moss.
That's PlayStation VR, which is very acceptable. So we're gonna kind of rapid fire. If you guys on these next topics, if you guys have any things to say on it, go ahead and shout it out. Quick updates: Burnout Paradise Remastered is out March 16 on Xbox One and PS4 for $39.99. So I don't know. Are you guys jumping into that? Because I might actually.
Yeah, I love Burnout, but I probably won't buy it again.
Well, when I found that it was remastered, I was like, okay, that might be a good idea to have it remastered and re-released because the game.
Yeah, do you want it? Will you buy it or not? Let's keep it short. I gotta
no. The one thing I want to say about it is that when I played it the first time, it was very bland and there wasn't a lot to it. This one they might add stuff.
No,
so
they're not adding anything. It's just a re-release of the PS3.
No, there was a lot of ramps, more areas.
It's the same exact game. You just didn't play it enough. They had plenty in it. Burnout Paradise had plenty.
No, I was reading on it. They were talking about that they were going to put extra content in it.
Now, this is the UFC thing. Next time I'm going to bring up all these facts and put them into the show.
No, this was a fact. I read this as one of the things.
You see what I got to deal with, Jeremy? It's the same exact game, except it has all the DLC with it. The original game was plenty. And me looking back in retrospect, I'm thinking, like, I didn't really like it because I spent so much time with it. But then I look at my trophy list, and I platinumed that game. I had to like.
You played it hard.
I had to like something about it.
You played it hard.
But anyways, this is one of those. This is one of those things. I think this game might have been a little ahead of its time because now we're so used to grouping up. We're used to playing, Monster Hunter, Destiny, and at the time, I don't think we weren't like that.
There wasn't, and that's the one thing that I didn't like about it is that it had this potential for a great online play, but there was hardly anybody playing it.
But now Need for Speed did it, and they're like, let's bring it back.
There was a lot, but like I said, I think at that time it was a little ahead of its time where the grouping was really nice. You did everything through the D-pad. You're like, I'm gonna invite everybody through the D-pad. I'm gonna do all the races set up. I mean, the only thing that I really didn't like about it was that it was so open world. So it was easy to just get lost all the time. Right. It wasn't tracks. It was the whole open world. So you would get lost if you missed that exit. And that's it. That's your race. That was the one thing. That was the one thing. But like I said, I think with the whole idea of we could group up from the Division, Destiny, Anthem's coming up, Monster Hunter, I think this might have a potential to be like, we really missed this game. We missed it, and now it's going to be great. So to me, it's like, if you guys get it, I'm jumping on.
Hey, it might be Burnout's comeback. You never know. Their resurgence.
Yeah. So next thing, this seemed like it was going to be a bigger story than it ended up being. So I'll just quote it. It's from Kotaku. Quote, Sledgehammer Games co-founders and Call of Duty World War II directors Michael Condrey and Glenn Schofield have left the company they started, Kotaku has learned. Aaron Halen will take over the top role at the studio. So at first, this is one of those clickbaity type of things. I saw it on Kotaku. It was like, the Sledgehammer guys are leaving. So they're the guys who made World War II. It was a big success. It's still selling, obviously. And it was like, they're leaving. Like, well, they're not really leaving. They're just getting a better job. They're getting executive roles now.
Executives now. They're not really like directly involved in the games now. They're going to be overseeing mini games,
which is kind of cool. Which is to say, like, World War II was really big for them. It was really big that they were like, do you guys want to be executives? Do you guys want to have more hand in what the next project is? So it seemed like it was a bigger thing. I was like, oh, what do you mean they left? Because this happened with Infinity War during World War II, Modern Warfare 1 and 2, where the whole studio shut down. There was a whole thing. There was a lawsuit dude Vince Zampella, and they created the studio that now does Titanfall. That's where it came from Infinity Ward. So I was like, ooh, is that happening again? I was like, no, they just went to better jobs. But you know, the clickbaity stuff, they're like, they quit their jobs. I'm like, they quit their jobs to get a better job at the same company because they're still through Activision.
Well, I was very happy to know that these two guys were the two guys from Visceral Games that made Dead Space.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's there's a lot of as long as everybody's employed and there's good talent at the company, that's all that matters. So next thing on here, the March Xbox Game Pass lineup. They've announced what it's including for the month of March. It includes Super Lucky's Tale, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and will be the first month. So this is why I included it in this. It's the first month that Microsoft starts their first-party day one release strategy with Sea of Thieves on March 20th. So we talked about it a little bit before, and this is when I got a blank stare from Dalan. That's why I'm like, he's like, do we need to talk about this? Like, yes, and you have to research it because I don't need a blank stare. So I don't know if you've heard about the Xbox Game Pass. It's like a Netflix type of thing, but you don't stream it. You download the games and you have it on the hard drive. So March is going to be the first month that Sea of Thieves is the next game from Rare, from Microsoft. Rare, I mean, they made GoldenEye, man, and they haven't done anything in a while.
Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong.
So it
was GoldenEye, Donkey Kong, Perfect Dark, and then Microsoft bought them, and they just kind of, you're going to make Kinect games now. So this is their next game. This is their next big game, Sea of Thieves. So March 20th is when the game launches. So instead of paying $40, I'm not sure how much it is, $40 to $60. Instead of paying $40 to $60, you pay $10 for the Xbox Game Pass. You have the game. So there, and this is going forward. This is with Crackdown. This is with Halo. This is anything that's first party. You get it with $10 a month. So we'll see how it goes. I know this is the first time I'm getting the Game Pass, and I think I have like a 2-week trial thing. So I'm going to use it for this and then see if I'm convinced, right? See if I'm convinced with this. But would this get you guys to get an Xbox or anything like that?
No.
But if there was a similar system for PlayStation 4, would you guys buy into it?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
Definitely.
So it's not one of those things where it'll convince you to get an Xbox, but if it was on PlayStation, you would consider.
Well, PlayStation has the little legacy thing that you can do. Well, I can't remember.
Yeah,
what
but
it's
you
called.
got to stream it, man. It's not the same.
Yeah, but what is that?
The
The PlayStation Now? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
So
you got to stream it, and
it's-
then it's dependent on your, how good your connection is.
If you guys
but-
can't see it, we are all shaking our heads in no.
I have 100 megabyte a second connection, and it's still not enough for that. So it's like you need to be on a gigabit connection or something for to make it work.
And the games are very limited in your choices too. So
yeah, I like, you just download it, you play it like that, right? That's what. So the next thing on our list, Mario Odyssey was apparently always planned for the Switch. I thought it was like a Wii U, and that's kind of common sense. You would think it was developed on Wii U and then it went to Switch, but apparently not. Game Informer, and this is via Nintendo Everything, it said, speaking with the magazine this month, producer Yoshiaki Koizumi said that it was always planned for Nintendo Switch. We really were considering a lot of the hardware capabilities specifically for this game and wanted to make the most of use of them. And then Nintendo Shinya Takahashi also chimed in with the following. I think the idea with the Nintendo Switches became very important around here because it can both function as a console or portable device. We really thought about what sort of software features would make the best use of those capabilities. Super Mario Odyssey really answers to a lot of that capability in the way we had hoped. We wanted it to time it for year-end release to make the most of that as well. I mean, it seemed, they're saying that we were looking at the Switch, what we wanted to do for it. It was getting developed for the Wii U, man. Can we... Or do you guys get a sense from what they said that they actually started it with the Switch in mind? Or
no, I'm pretty sure they started it with the Wii U in mind, but then they decided, we're just gonna wait until the next system.
The Wii U bombed.
But you know what I was thinking about when you were saying this is I want the game that they were making for Zelda as the tech demo for Wii U. Do you remember the tech demo that they had for the Zelda game? They had like a fight with Link versus Ganon or something like that.
You're talking about GameCube.
That was a GameCube. That was the Wii U.
I'm not. Yeah,
that was a
Wii U. It was a Wii U.
Yeah,
it was essentially a tech demo recreation of the battle with Ganon at the end of Ocarina of Time.
And I thought it was beautiful. I was ready to see this game be made.
Hey, we've talked about it before, man. But I think the Zelda is going forward. It was such a big success. The fact that it was open world
thing.
It's gonna be open world, and they're gonna do occasional throwbacks to 10 dungeons. You're like, look at this. Is it a throwback? Don't you?
Yeah,
like this?
I think it was just too successful for them to ever go back to the old formula. Yeah. Now, maybe they build upon it, right? Where they expand the dungeons, and the dungeons are a little longer or a little harder, because
or they placate to somebody like me, and they're like, let's make 8 dungeons, but it's still an open world. And
well, they might actually end up making a separate game where they end up doing the old school.
That's what I'm saying. They'll make them as throwbacks, but going forward, there's going to be open world.
I'm not talking about just like singular dungeons in their open world mode. I'm saying that at some point.
What am I saying, Jeremy?
I know
Is that
exactly
not
what
what
you're
I'm saying? That they'll make a throwback separate game that is to 8 to 10
I
dungeons?
didn't know you were saying separate games.
Anything else?
I thought you were
think-
talking about
I
in
think-
the
I
game
think
that you were doing throwback dungeons. That's what you
Ultimately,
were
I
talking
think
about.
that'll be your handhelds, right? That'll be your handheld releases. Although the Switch technically is their
Is the
handheld
handheld.
now, so
So,
But you're talking about things like where they did Spirit Tracks, even though we had these full 3D games. They still
Right,
did
right.
the 2D
And-
up top.
well,
view
now the
games.
traditional, or what used to be traditional Zeldas, will be those. Will be like, don't you remember when Zelda was this? Now they're
Do
open
you
world.
remember? I remember.
it was just too damn good.
Remember
So,
berries? All right.
so the next thing, this was a big deal, and Dalan really made a big stink out of this. Well, it's a big deal for me too. But
good job.
the FCC has ordered net neutrality repealed on April 23rd. So now we have a date. Game Informer, I was looking up the story on Game Informer, and they said this for their take on it. With anti-net neutrality, Republicans controlling both houses of Congress and the White House, it's going to take a massive effort, including work by states themselves, to keep this from happening. So as far as we know, net neutrality, April 23rd, it's going down.
There's so much stuff happening in America. I don't think there's going to be enough attention on it.
Fortunately, and then we're just gonna be
Well,
suffering with
and I mean,
throttling.
Unfortunately.
And it's
we're
also
gonna-
it's also not the doomsday thing that it's that it's been hyped up to be either. We didn't
Well,
have
we
net
didn't think it was a
neutrality before
doomsday
2000.
thing.
We didn't
Yeah.
have net neutrality before 2005, and it was just fine.
Yeah, but now everybody's thinking about it. You know what's going to happen.
I mean, it
Well,
is
the
one of
market
those things.
the market has shifted.
Yeah, it definitely is one of those things we have to wait and see.
We have
We'll have to wait and
microtransactions and loot boxes. What do you think they're going to do with net neutrality when it's gone?
It really is. Yeah, it really is one of those things. And I think it was as what Dalan, or no, you were, whoever was saying it, whoever just said it. There's so much
Good job
going on.
paying attention.
There's
That
so
was
much
me. I
going
said
on
it.
that there's gonna be little attention
There's
played
gonna
on
be
it.
so
That's
little
kind of the
attention. They're just
unfortunate
going to pass it. and
So
it's gonna
April
be over.
23rd, if you guys want to get active on I think it's gonna pass. I think it's gonna pass. It's just gonna be up to us to see if we can delay it, see if what's gonna be the alternative, right? But
Right.
corporations want this gone, of course, because they want to be able to sell you
Piecemeal.
internet packages and not have to.
And
throttle.
you know it could end up being a net positive, right? Maybe you don't pay for a bunch of crap that you don't want, and your bills are cheaper as
Yeah.
a result. Who knows?
Yeah, but then you
so
have
we'll see.
Amazon Prime issues where you got the whole channel, but in order to play certain games inside that channel, you have to actually pay for that particular channel. I don't know.
Well, that's
have you ever
something
seen
separate,
Amazon
though.
Prime?
That's something that's already happening.
Yeah, I
whether
know, but
net
they're gonna do
neutrality
it
or not.
through. They're gonna do it across the board.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's one. I definitely agree with the. We'll see. What,
I don't even watch
happens.
TV, so
So we'll see. I just live in the outdoors.
Thanks for being in the
all day.
world, Jeremy.
So the next thing is restored and enhanced versions of Turok and Turok 2 will be dropping on Xbox One March 2nd, 2018. So that's this week. You can already preload it. I might have to grab these. I don't know, man.
I didn't really play
I
Turok,
don't
so
ha-
I heard they were amazing games. But
I
never
don't.
really
I don't
played
have
them.
like the most nostalgic, but for some reason these Nintendo 64 era games, I'm like,
GoldenEye with dinosaurs.
I kind of want to mess
I
with
mean,
it.
that's
No. You
I
can't say
kinda wanna-
Golden. Well, I guess it is GoldenEye with dinosaurs, isn't it?
It was
Kind of
during
like
the same
Dino
time.
Crisis. It's Resident Evil with dinosaurs.
Well, it was during that same time. It was in the same era, like late 90s, mid to late 90s or whatever. But I kind of want to mess with it. I'm not sure how much it is. I didn't see a price for it. It might be like $10, $15.
$5 is fair.
If $5 you would say it's fair when we were first getting the internet, but I think it's like 10, 15, maybe 20, man.
No, what I need is
depending
a
how
good-
cheap it is, that's if I'll get it.
No, what I need is a good follow up to the game Win Back. That's
good
what I
job.
need.
Good job, Dylan. Yeah, you know what? It had the Gears of War. It was Gears of War before Gears of War,
Yeah.
but much crappier and not as smooth. And it didn't have Epic Games. And there's a lot of things that was wrong with it. But it was a Konami game, right? I believe.
Yeah, it
Went
was.
back in the
There's
summer.
a couple of games I could start.
It's one of those ones that comes
gonna
up
move on.
occasionally. Was like you can credit that they started doing dodging unsuccessfully, but they were doing dodging. So the next thing, this might interest you guys. So the Chrono Trigger version that just dropped on Steam is just a mobile port, touch controls and all, apparently. And there's this guy that formerly of IGN, Jared Petty on Twitter. He actually ranked which versions of Chrono Trigger. So I want to hear about you guys. You guys are the RPG guys, so I defer to you. So the number one version that he says is the best port of Chrono Trigger. He says it's the Superb DS port. Number 2 is SNES and using a CRT TV. Number 3 is Wii Virtual Console. Number 4 is a cart plus Retron 5 or comparable hardware and HDTV. So that's kind of like the Retron 5 that you can.
right.
It's sort of like the system, right? But emulated.
Yeah, the DS version was by far the best.
Yeah,
Number-
Just added in all the
Oh, I don't
extra
even need to read the
content.
rest.
Yeah.
Number 5, he put mobile port. Number 6, PlayStation Network one, man. And that's the one that I would probably be most likely to play because I could play it on Vita.
Well,
but now I know.
Well, there are a couple of things I can say to that. Is of course the 3DS version was the best one.
DS,
But DS,
fair,
3DS,
fair.
either way it goes, the DS version was the best port
I
of it.
have that laying around too, man. I
But
gotta
I'm
mess
not
with
sure why he put the SNES on there because it was on the SNES to begin with.
it. Well, he's
So
saying. Well, I
it's
think.
not really important. It's just the release.
Well, I think what he's saying is that
Just looking for the definitive version.
I think he's talking about the definitive version, and the DS you could take it around.
But we're
Whereas
talking
the
about ports, though.
whereas the SNES one, yes, that's the best one, and you want to see it on the CRT, but you got to be at home.
And
You
by
gotta
the way,
play it that way.
I actually did appreciate the fact that they ported it to the PS1, not just the PlayStation Network. That was on the PS1.
Right.
It
So
was
that's
in
how
a
you're playing
bundle
it
pack
via
with
that,
one of the
right?
Final Fantasy games. It was still a really good version. It was
It was
actually
with
So
Final
Jer-
Fantasy Tactics, I think.
So
Yeah,
Jeremy,
something
you
like that.
agree with the DS is the best?
Oh, yeah.
Dalen,
by far.
the DS is the best one, but but I'm gonna say the second best one to me was the PS1. The PS1
He says it's
one.
like the worst, the 6th or 7th worst actually. But I don't-
PlayStation Network or
No,
PS1?
PlayStation. He said
PS1.
PSN.
Yeah,
He said
PS1.
Okay. I don't even think he has PS1. I heard
No,
that
it's
one's
not
like
even on the
laggy,
list.
man. I heard that one's like pretty
No,
laggy.
it
pretty
wasn't
bad.
laggy. You just don't want to scratch your disc. Don't mess up.
I don't know. I noticed a
You
lot
guys
of
were
frame,
fine. There you
frame,
go. See, there you go.
frame drops.
So
Oh, wow.
we'll move on, but thanks for
Sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear that. So next thing, Final Fantasy 15 DLC to continue into 2019. This from US Gamer said, quote, the original plan for 2018 saw Final Fantasy 15 getting 3 episodes of further downloadable content, and now the plan has grown to include a 4th episode of content, according to an interview with game director Hajime Tabata and he got an interview with Dengeki Online. He's saying that the DLC will extend into 2019. Fans are still hoping for the episode. Luna and Tabata hinted at such a thing in another recent interview with Famitsu. That leaves 2 additional episodes, and some fans are hoping that Arena Highwind will take one of those spots. So, are you guys excited to be playing this game for the next 20 years, I guess, at this point?
Well, honestly,
No,
I still need to go through the expansions that came out with the first game. So I still need to do, what were their names? Prompto, Ignis, and Gladio. I still need to do those 3. So I can't even say much for the new ones. Actually,
What
I
about
don't mind
you?
the Luna one.
Before you interrupted Jeremy.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Initially, I was waiting for the PC release that was going to have all the
That's
DLC
supposed to come
on
out
it.
pretty soon, right?
But now that they're talking about having more DLC, I'll probably wait even longer. I mean,
You want the
Dude,
just buy
definitive
the
version.
exactly. That's
Wait.
why I play Skyrim on PC, right?
Wait, you
Because
don't
I can
think-
mod, I can play the definitive version.
Yeah.
Well, you don't think the definitive version would have the Luna expansion on it?
What he's saying is you want to potentially buy it for like $20 and everything.
What I'm
included.
saying is I want to buy it and I want to play it once. I don't want to buy it and
then have to
replay
go
it
back
and-
to it.
You don't want to have to revisit it and all that.
Yes.
So the next thing,
I remember when Final Fantasy games were just complete.
they just came
There's
feature
just-
complete.
there's everything.
Day one,
It was all in
feature
there.
complete. They're hey man, they're victims of the same loot crates, the downloadable
Yep.
content.
It's like
thing.
last time they did it right was I think 13
So-
for that. But
so
I
this-
mean,
this-
games were terrible. But
So this is of interest to me, being of a Dreamcast era, and I know this was a huge, for the most part, a PlayStation 1 series. But Tony Hawk on Twitter, he spoke up on this on the state of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. He said on Twitter, quote, to anyone asking me to remaster old games or complaining about THPS, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, servers being down, Activision owns the THPS license, but I am no longer working with them. If I had the skills/authority to reboot servers or code games for newer systems on my own, I would be happy to. So Activision owns the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series. Tony Hawk doesn't even own his own name, I guess is what you
No,
can
he
say.
just doesn't
which
own
is
his own
unfortunate.
game.
Yeah, that's the business world for you.
But you know what? It's unfortunate. I think they worked on Tony Hawk 5. I don't think he was involved with that.
It's like
This was
Marvel
a
and the
couple years ago.
Fantastic Four.
So,
Or the X-Men.
So it's one of those things where it's like I think he keeps getting bugged on Twitter, like, when is Tony Hawk coming back? When is Tony Hawk coming back? And he's like, stop! I don't control this. I don't
can't do
control
it. It's not about me.
It's like how McDonald's, like when it first started. I don't know if you guys saw The Founder. That's a great movie. If you guys haven't seen it, actually,
I haven't seen it, but I know the story.
But it's like McDonald's, the guys that created McDonald's, they don't even own their name. They got it taken from them. They don't even own their own name. So it's kind of like the Tony Hawk thing. It's like, it says Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. I was not at all involved in that. Stop bugging me. It's not my series. But it's unfortunate. But I think that's one of those relics of an older time, man. The way those games were good was that you had a time limit. It was a 2-minute time limit. Do the best you can in those 2 minutes. And then when they started to expand on it, that's kind of when it started to devolve.
Yeah.
It wasn't as fun because you don't have, I don't know, maybe we like the stress of, I got 2 minutes, I got to get all the skate letters, I got to do as many tricks as I can, and the multiplayer was incredible.
Right.
So
And the music was good too.
maybe it was a Burnout Paradise syndrome or something where they made it bigger and it made it worse in
Hey
that
guys,
sense. Where
let's go to the McDonald's museum.
You gotta. Well, I mean, if you're gonna make it bigger, you gotta fill it with stuff, right? It's like
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
They made it massive. That map is huge, but they filled it with stuff.
yeah, so I mean I would have hope. They made Tony Hawk 5. And it was Activision made, so
Well,
maybe they just got to have the right team, bring it back, scale it back, and make it good.
The
Make it good.
The last thing
Take
about
out the
that there is-
manuals. We don't need them.
I mean, the other thing about it is it was the timing. It was that.
Oh yeah, it was
time.
during the extreme era.
Everyone
Was skaters.
Right,
everybody
exactly.
Was
it was the skateboarding.
everyone was wearing etnies.
Was a big deal.
Oh, well, actually, right now
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
wouldn't be the best time for them to remake a Tony Hawk simply because what was it? Steep. They got Steep out. All the people that are liking sports games, they're all on Steep.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of did go through that. It's exactly what Jeremy is saying. Is we went through that, man. We went through that phase.
We stopped at Steep.
We were
killed
kind of
1080. I mean,
we were kind of hoping that Tony Hawk 5 would kind of be the resurgence. It was terrible, and maybe there's a 6 and that's better. Or they throw everything under the rug and they just come back and it's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and now Tony Hawk is involved
One
or
would
something
hope.
like that. So we'll see what happens with that.
Have
The
the
next
people
thing.
who do Splatoon make that game.
Now, before everything shut down, we did have a good talk about this, but we're just gonna have to condense it. So Rainbow Six Siege is apparently going on for 10 years, no sequel planned, and it's from US Gamer. They actually quoted one of the brand director. Today we have 36 operators. Year 3 will bring 8 more. That 100 is the symbol of the longevity we want to have for that game. And Alexander Remy said this. It was an invitational tournament for the game. We are saying extremely loudly here, there is no sequel plan. We will be here for the next 10 years, so expect more Rainbow Six in your life for quite some time.
It won't last
So-
that long. People will get bored with it.
Probably. I mean, it's 3 years in. 3 years in. They were trying to raise the price at some point. It didn't work out because the backlash was strong enough.
There's too
So,
many
but-
other options that are new
Yeah.
and more
But
interesting.
Honestly, I don't think Rainbow Six really made too many sequels to any of their games. The only one I can
No.
even think of was Rainbow Six Las Vegas 2,
Yeah, the
which was an
Vegas 1 and
excellent
2.
game. But
I
other than
mean,
that, there were no
and
sequels.
it's going to depend, right? He can say whatever he wants. They're
Yeah.
supposed to blow smoke in a sense and hope that players stick around. If players don't stick around, then it doesn't matter what he says. If the base isn't there, if the fan base isn't there, then it's just going to go away. But the way that they're establishing themselves, they're like, it's an expensive game still. I think it's like $30-$40. You're lucky to get it any cheaper than that. So I think they're doing a good job. And it's one of those games that when it came out, it wasn't a huge success. It was like the middle of December, of course. The middle of December, of course, you're not going to blow up that hard. But it built its base over time, and it's like it's one of those games where like as long as people are there to play it, we'll see it. I mean, maybe it does go 10 years. Maybe it goes 9 years and a half, and then we can tell them, dude, it didn't go
Good
for 10
timing.
years. It didn't go for 10
Well,
years.
and the other thing is, it hasn't been iterative, right? It's the same game.
Well,
that
no,
it
that's
was
what
when it was released.
Well, that's the thing. No, they have, and the operators. So what the operators are is like the
More characters.
like MOBAs, right? MOBAs, you have
Yeah.
your heroes. So they've been
Right,
adding
right,
heroes.
but
These
from
are
a
the
gameplay
operators.
perspective, all you do is change guns. You're changing a kit. That's not iterative.
Well,
from a gameplay
but they do
perspective.
add
Taller,
levels. But
shorter,
they are
female,
adding levels.
male.
You're not adding new ways to play. You're adding.
Well, they are
different-
actually. That's the thing. And even with the next update, and it's free for everyone. That's the thing. Like I think that's what keeps the base strong is the free aspect, right? I mean, yeah, you did pay into it, but now you get all the updates. The only thing you have to pay for are now the operators or the heroes, if you will. So it's whatever what you said. If the user base is there, then they'll keep going. Otherwise, yeah, they keep updating. I think they're gonna make a wave-based type of mode. They're actually making the next one is gonna be sort of a horror type of setup to
Yeah, I
it.
heard there
So
were
they are
zombies.
updating it. They're updating it pretty regularly. It's the same, and I understand what you're saying. I mean, if you're thinking the Call of Duty route, they don't update. It's just the same game, right? Well, besides launching a new one and the certain types, I see what you're saying. But Rainbow Six is in the mold of Fortnite, where they're constantly updating, and they're doing it for you bought it once, you get everything, but you do got to pay for operators, you got to pay for the heroes or whatever you want to call them, and because the levels, you can play all the levels, you can play all the game types, you can play everything. So we'll see. I mean, maybe they only go 8 years, maybe they go only 9 years and
You're
a half.
very
We'll see.
hung up on that time frame. We don't know. We'll find out.
We will find out. So the next thing, I know you guys are going to be excited about this, and then one more after this, which we're going to end it on one that you're going to really enjoy. Sonic movie coming next year according to Nintendo Everything. Sega and Paramount Pictures have made the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie official. The film will debut in the United States on November 15, 2019, with other territories to follow.
Just let it die.
Just let it die. Just let Sonic die.
Just because they got lucky with
Sonic Mania.
a recent Sonic game doesn't mean they should keep it going.
Well, I don't think it was luck. I think it's just the fact that they used a formula that people actually enjoyed, and now they're going back.
Yeah,
they moved on to another formula that they didn't like again.
I think it was luck in the sense that people bought it, but you know what? It's one of those things like. It is luck in the sense that Sega was so backwards about it. Because if they knew how successful Sonic Mania would have been, they wouldn't have charged $20. They would have charged $30, $40. Like, look, this is a throwback to the Genesis era or whatever it is. I think they didn't know how successful it was going to be. And $20 and it blew up and it was a great game. I think the problem
there is they also made Sonic Episodes 1 and 2. And those didn't sell as well as they expected.
Yeah,
I mean, one did, but episode 2, their sales dropped dramatically.
And if you've seen the story, like there's a story out there about how the team came together. They're just a bunch of fans that worked with Sega, right? Of course, but they were like, we wanted to do a throwback game, so they didn't have all these mountain of expectations. That's some nonsense like Sonic Heroes or whatever the last dumb game they made. So they could just twirl away and be like, we're gonna make a really fun 2D Sonic game, and you guys do that, and it became a huge success. So. Sonic.
Yeah, I guess hopefully that inspires them to,
make a new Sonic and Knuckles.
Yeah,
but you definitely don't see the hesitation that I know recently. I believe I don't know if we talked about it, but that Shigeru Miyamoto was kind of like, I was kind of hesitant to make the Mario movie, and I kind of got in touch with Illumination, and they convinced me. This is just like it's coming out next year. We don't hear about any hesitation or anything like that. It's
They're
like
doing it.
Paramount Pictures isn't really known to make 3D movies, so.
Well, as long as they don't make Sonic fall in love with a human woman, I think they might be okay.
I feel like you can't rule that out. I feel like you can't rule that out. So, last thing, and then we'll get out of here. Ni no Kuni 2 has gone gold. It's launching March 23rd, 2018. It's finally coming out because there was a short delay and it was supposed to be out for a while. But are you guys pumped for that? I know Jeremy,
I was like, why are you only aiming at him? I kind of been waiting for that the moment it was announced.
Mine's already paid for.
Oh,
it's already paid for, ready to go.
No, I haven't paid for mine yet, but I have Ni no Kuni 1, and the battle system for that was hard to get through.
They've updated the combat, right?
The story is great. But
I went through and watched some videos, and that's what convinced me to finally, pull the trigger on pre-ordering it. But what they've done is they've taken the base of Ni no Kuni's combat and added a more active system. So in Ni no Kuni 1, the biggest pain in the ass in that game was the fact.
Hey, that's the first cuss word in like an hour and 10 minutes. I'm good with that. but that's fine. Continue.
You should be proud. Anyway, military background. It doesn't happen often. The thing about it was that you would have to queue up a set of actions or an action for your little summons, and
I remember not liking it at all.
Forever.
That action would include them running from one side of the screen to the other, for instance, to get to the enemy, then executing the animation, and then running back. And what would happen is you would start trying to plan things, like you knew a boss was going to use a move.
Did you make it through the first one? Did you?
No,
because of
that battle system, man. It takes away. So and then they tried to focus on that book to try and get people to really delve into the world. Nobody cared.
So you would get halfway across the map trying to get something done, and another enemy somewhere else on the screen would do something else that they had queued up. And it would
How far did you get into it? It was a long game too, right?
I got to the first castle left. I got
about 30 hours into it, so I was probably about halfway.
Man, you got way deeper.
So there's a couple things. There's a couple things, and then we'll end it. So as far as the gameplay, so it's more active this time around, so it should be more fun. Now the big thing for me is that Studio Ghibli is not longer involved. Is that a big deal for you?
It actually, I know it's not a big deal for a lot of people, but I know in itself it is a big deal because Ghibli was very much involved in the first game.
Yeah, and Jeremy, is it a big deal for you?
It is, just because I absolutely and I haven't done as much research as I probably should have, just because
it's bought, man. It's bought and paid for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Put it right there. But the thing there is. It doesn't look so far. It doesn't look
as good. Nice. It still looks beautiful.
It still looks good. It just doesn't look as good as the first one did. It doesn't look quite as interesting. I mean, graphically crisp is one thing, but it just doesn't look as creatively interesting.
If it wasn't, and you know what, I probably should have thrown this in there, but I like how Chrono Trigger, I was going to mention kind of as a reference point, Chrono Trigger, Akira Toriyama, that was the Dragon Ball Z guy, right? Or the Dragon Ball guy. They have him in Chrono Trigger that he was like a main guy, and then they have a quote from one of the creators or one of the developers like, yeah, he just did the front side of the characters. We kind of had to guess what the back of them looked like.
Yep.
So I feel like this is sort of in that vein where Studio Ghibli kind of gave them that push, or were very heavily involved in the first one.
They created a whole universe.
And then with the second one, they don't know what the back of the characters look like, I would think. So we'll see how it turns out. But so if the gameplay didn't hook you, and then now the story is not from Studio Ghibli, but you're still interested. Then you're still like, you like the world. I would think you like the world that was created.
It was interesting enough to where I'm willing to give it a second chance because the biggest offender there is being fixed, being addressed. Yeah.
This is how you interact in this game, in the world, and if it's fixed, then Studio Ghibli didn't work on it, but they did work on the scenario, right? They did work on the world, on the environment.
But at least it'll keep the games going. And I was hoping that Ni no Kuni would continue on. It was a really good game, with the exception of the battle system issue.
So what did you think of your appearance on here? And we might have you on if you're down to go through the Google Hangout.
If you're down to make the drive.
What did you think of your first
I'm not
Salient
making the
points?
drive.
All right, Google Hangout then. That's the smile.
What did you think of?
Nope, not doing it.
What did you think of your first guest appearance here on the Salient Points?
I had a good time.
It's a first. Thank you. We hope you had your first. And it's a first for us too, because we just do it's me and Dalan. So now we got a dynamic of like this is what a third person being on the show is. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of Salient Points number 22, Jeremy Lowe. Is there somewhere you would like people to find you, or do you don't care that people find you on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that?
I'll tell you what, if I make myself a regular doing this, then maybe. But until then,
we'll see.
We'll just leave it as the mystery.
You'll be the guest.
And Dalan,
I'm staying behind the curtain.
Dalan, thanks for coming around again and interrupting people and all that. But that's fine.
Once again, if you want to send me messages or follow me in any kind of way, Twitter apparently is not the best way to do it. But you can.
Not apparently. I mean, if you don't use it, the people can't get in touch with
you. I don't use it enough. I have an account, but I don't use it enough.
You're kind of the master of that domain.
But you can definitely shoot messages to me or follow me on YouTube at CloudNeftis2, because somebody took one because he saw my name and decided, hey, I like it more than you, and I'm going to go do it first.
We get it, Dylan. We get it. Okay.
That was very frustrating.
We
understand how that works. All right. Well, I'm Carlos Macias, your host. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.
Gonna be somebody tonight. I'm gonna be somebody tonight.